Under a thunder-gray sky on the endless plains, a wealthy rancher's wagon broke down in the middle of a storm, and 3 barefoot orphans appeared out of nowhere to help him. They had nothing but hunger in their eyes and mud on their skin. Yet their quiet courage would soon rebuild more than just a broken wheel. That night the rancher couldn't sleep, and by dawn he made a decision that would change all their lives forever. What began as an act of kindness in the rain became the story of how a man found the family he never knew he needed. Before we dive in, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Under a thunder-gray sky that rolled low and heavy over the soaked plains, 3 barefoot children dragged their weary bodies down the muddy road, soaked to the bone, their faces hollow with hunger, clothes patched and threadbare, holding each other upright as the storm lashed the prairie around them. And just as the youngest Sam stumbled, a sharp, splintering sound cracked through the air ahead. A wagon wheel shattered under pressure, and they rounded the bend to find a stranded rancher struggling beside a toppled wagon, 2 horses stamping nervously as he cursed the broken spoke, mud soaking his fine boots and coat. But even soaked and miserable, the man looked like someone used to power, not help. And yet Will, the eldest at barely 14, stepped forward without hesitation, his arm across Ruth's shoulder, his voice clear through the wind. "Need a hand, sir?" And the rancher turned, startled to see 3 drenched, shoeless kids offering help in the middle of nowhere. And for a second, suspicion flickered in his eyes. But something about their faces, the shivering determination, made him pause, then nod slowly. "You fix wheels, boy?" And Will nodded back. "We'll try, sir." And together they got to work, Ruth holding the swaying lantern, Sam bracing the axle with trembling arms, Will using a thick stick as a lever while rain poured into their eyes and the wind clawed at them like it wanted them gone. But inch by inch, grit by grit, the wheel was lifted, the broken spoke reset, and when the final bolt snapped in with a wet crack, the wagon shifted upright again, and the man exhaled hard, brushing rain from his eyes, stunned by the speed and teamwork of the children, reaching into his coat for coins. But Ruth shook her head, her voice soft but proud. "We don't want money, sir. Just food if you've got some." That quiet dignity struck something inside the man, a man who'd built fences with money, dealt with cattle worth thousands, but hadn't seen raw integrity like that in years. So he handed over bread, jerky and water, and the children took it, nodded once in thanks, then turned and vanished into the storm before he could ask their names, disappearing like ghosts swallowed by the plains, leaving behind only muddy footprints and something unsettled in his chest. That night he couldn't sleep. Not with the image of Ruth's defiant eyes and Sam's shaking hands fixing themselves like photographs behind his eyelids. And at dawn, before the sun had even broken the clouds, he hitched up his horses and followed the direction they had gone, the tracks half washed by rain but still there, winding past the broken fence line down to a crumbling shack by the river, more pile of wood than home, where smoke rose weakly from a crooked chimney, and 3 children huddled under a leaking roof, soup boiling over a fire no bigger than a candle flame. And when he stepped from the wagon, Ruth rose to block the door, her chin lifted, her voice firm. "We're not trespassing, sir. We'll be gone by morning." And something inside him cracked as he shook his head and replied, "You're not going anywhere. You helped me. Now I'm helping you." And that was how it began, not with a contract or charity, but with a single decision made in silence. And before the rain could return, he had them loaded into the wagon and carried them to his ranch, a wide, sweeping place of red barns and white fences where hired men were already saddling up for morning chores. But when he pulled in with 3 soaked orphans sitting beside him, the foreman squinted and muttered, "We taking in strays now, boss?" And the rancher didn't miss a beat. "We're taking in decent people," and he brought them inside, fed them, dried their clothes, and gave them each a place. Will in the barn learning to fix hinges and latch gates, Ruth in the kitchen where the cook wept the first time she tasted her stew, and little Sam in the porch chair counting cattle as they crossed the field, learning numbers by watching life unfold in front of him. And slowly, day by day, the ranch changed, the air warmed, The laughter returned to rooms that had long been silent, and though some ranch hands grumbled behind their backs, no one could deny that the fences were straighter, the meals richer, and even the old horses calmer since the children had arrived. Yet tension brewed, whispered in the dark, until one black night a dry lightning storm rolled across the hills and struck the northern barn, igniting hay bales like kindling, sending flames roaring skyward as men rushed from bunkhouses in panic. And it was Ruth, waking first, who screamed the alarm, and Will who spotted the rancher's prized stallion bucking in terror inside the collapsing barn. And without waiting for anyone's permission, he ran in barefoot on scorched wood, choking on smoke, reaching for the bridle while beams crashed down around him. And the rancher followed, dragging them both out as Ruth and Sam threw wet blankets on the flames, coughing until their lungs burned. But in the end the stallion was saved, the fire beaten, and Will's arm wrapped in fresh bandages where the heat had kissed his skin raw, and the rancher stood over him the next morning silent until he turned without a word, saddled his best horse and rode into town, returning at sundown with a brand new covered wagon, not for him, but for them, filled with tools, bedding, seed, and a deed to a piece of land down by the creek. And when Will asked, confused, "What's this for, sir?" the man just smiled and said, "You fixed more than my wagon that day. You fixed what was broken in me. Now go build something of your own." And Ruth whispered, her voice shaking with tears, "We already have something of our own, sir. We have you." And the man didn't reply, just turned away before they could see his eyes mist. And from that day on, the ranch kept 4 extra places at the table, and the shack by the creek became a real home, with fences that Will built himself, and a porch swing Sam painted blue, and a kitchen garden where Ruth grew flowers just because she could. And the old rancher visited every Sunday, bringing apples and tools and stories, and long after folks forgot how it started, travelers would pass the creek house and see 3 grown siblings and a gray-haired man working side by side, and wonder what bound them. And no one could say if it was fate or kindness or something deeper. But when the rains returned and storms blew hard, some swore they could still see 3 small shapes trudging through the mud to fix a broken wagon wheel. The moment the world shifted, not with wealth or power, but with a choice to stop walking and help, even when you had nothing to give except your hands.